Hello, Dimitri. How are you?
Hello, Thodoris. I'm pretty fine. How are you?
Me too. You
Me
too?
too. You too.
You
You
too?
too. You
Oh,
too. You
you.
too. So we are Dimitris and Thodoris, presenters of In the Air Tonight music broadcast. We have weekly episodes with amazing guests. You can subscribe here, as you can see, and follow our social media, Facebook, etc. So tonight, Thodoris, as we've said, yes,
We we have the second episode of the second
of the second
period
season
of our
is
show.
is 2-2. It's of
Yes.
course the first episode of our English version in the air tonight.
Correct.
So tonight we have an amazing guest.
Hmm.
It is a person that looks like a panther, as we can
Nowadays.
say nowadays, because of his release nowadays.
Mhm.
So, as we've said during the past week, tonight with us, Daniel Gildenlöw.
From Pain of Salvation.
I know what you're thinking. I must be the problem here. I think too fast, talk too loud, barely touch the ground. Hi,
Hello, Daniel.
Hello, Daniel.
How are
It's
you?
it's great.
I'm fine.
Yeah. Okay.
It's great to have you here with us tonight.
Yeah.
It's great to be here. I wish I could be there. And I'm guessing you have much warmer right now than we do.
Ah,
Yes, of course.
okay.
Tonight is a rainy day.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Here,
Then I'm
yes,
glad to
yes.
be. Yes.
You've chosen the day. It's
Yeah.
one of the 3 or 4 days in the summer that it's raining. So
Oh,
you've chosen
In
the
Greece. Yes.
that is a good ratio, though, I have to say.
Yeah. Okay.
yes, but it's a good weather for your new album, Panther. But
Oh,
we'll go but we'll go to that after
Later
our
on.
first
Yes.
section later on. So, Daniel,
yeah.
we have our first section that is about your inspirations. So, let's go for top 5 albums and let's have a talk for each one of them.
All right.
Let's go to number 5. I
I
know it's very difficult. I know
It's
that.
difficult, and my sons keep asking all the time. I can tell them about the universe and physics and everything, and then they ask me about my favorite color, and I go like, well, it depends. It's really difficult because like you have some albums that have been really like huge inspirations, but maybe you can't stand listening to them anymore, like now, but you still have to pay tribute. It's really difficult. I did sort of like make myself a little bit prepared. Albums are difficult because usually when you say albums, you want the album to be entirely good, like all the way through.
Of course,
And
of
there's
course.
so many good albums that are not necessarily the greatest albums because they do have some sort of shitty tracks on there.
Yeah, yeah.
But some of the ones that are very influential to me in my past and are also very like straight through good would be, and it's difficult in order, but let's try that. Then I'll
Okay.
go for fifth will be Abbey Road by the Beatles. That sounds so weird to put them fifth. But yeah,
Yeah.
great album. It sort of showed the way into the thematic and the conceptual, with the second half being that long song. Whenever things go black, it is because my phone is getting
Yeah, okay.
it tells me
Yeah.
the printer is low on ink.
Oh.
It really thinks this is very interesting.
Yeah.
So Abbey Road, wonderful album and a very mature album and a good farewell album from the Beatles, I would say, much more than Let It Be.
Okay.
So that would be number five.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's go to number 4.
Four. Yeah.
Yeah. Number four, I guess would be Eye in the Sky with the Alan Parsons Project.
Amazing choice.
Which,
Yeah.
incidentally, I think the first album that I bought for my own money as a kid. I think it was for my own money. Maybe my parents would disagree. I don't know. Um, and it was also, it's the definition of slick. It's like, what Toto wished that they could have done in the best of ways. And it's the only album in the world where you are allowed to have reverb on the hi-hat, and I will, agree with it. It's
Alan Parsons is a great producer and engineer, as we know,
yeah.
from Dark Side of the Moon to many legends from
Oh yeah.
before.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. So
Uh,
it will be, yeah.
yeah. No, I was just gonna say it was. I stumbled across it in the weirdest of ways, I guess, because I was on vacation with my family in Italy when I think I was 8 or 9 years old. And across the street, there was a Norwegian family on vacation. And they had a son who was 10, which is always cool when you're like 8 or 9.
Yeah, of course. Too old for you. Too old for you.
It's
Yeah.
like big and he knows everything in the world probably. And he had a boombox, like a cassette player.
Wow.
And that was cool as well. But when he bought, or his parents probably bought the boombox, they had Eye in the Sky on cassette for free, included with the boombox, which is still today, I'm
Oh,
trying to grasp that.
yes.
Why that cassette? Why that album? But that was how I was introduced to it, and I loved the album. And as soon as I got back home to Sweden, I bought that album, and I remember like signing a little D on the right top corner, to know that it was
Yeah.
my own album.
Mm.
Your first signature. Your
My-
first signature of album. Yeah.
It was something.
And Alan Parsons is releasing very nice albums still.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I haven't
The
really-
last album was amazing. It was last year, I think.
printer is low on ink.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna check that out for sure. But it's just like that album has stayed with me all through my life, and it's still like one of my top favorite albums for sure.
Okay. So
Let's
number
go.
three.
Number three.
Yes.
I would have to say War of the Worlds with Jeff Wayne, which is
Wow.
a bit of
Wow.
an odd album to put in there, I guess. But
A
it has-
musical one.
Yes.
but it had such a huge impact on me as a kid. It was my aunt, I think, who bought it in London on vinyl, and we had it in our house, and it just had all of these, like, there was so much imagery. I could like listen to it, and I would sit and look at the images and just be totally immersed in that world and that story. And still today, like when I pick that up and I put it on, I can't stop it. I have to sort of like just go through it. And it's very innovative. I mean, I know that a lot of prog rockers feel that it's sort of like an abomination to
To the
style.
club. Yeah.
But still, I have not heard any one album that sounds anything like that album. It's sort of like a totally unique animal on its own. And I just have to still today be impressed at the courage and the ideas and the just like scattered-mindedness of doing that.
I think that is the basis of sci-fi prog, something like that.
Yeah,
That we have seen.
yeah, I've never listened to SciFi Prog, so
You are not familiar with Aereon or Coheed Cabria.
well, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was
Yeah.
a specific style though.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And
So
a lot of ugliness in that album, and I think that is also something that I like. That really introduced to me, I think, how something can be like having a really ugly sound, but you still want more of it. Like those sounds sometimes they're so intrusive and so loud and so ugly, but still you fall in love with them. And I think that is the definition of what I've always been trying to do with Pain Salvation, like the ugly beauty of things.
So now we know why Panther has so many elements of that ugliness.
Yeah,
yes.
still all the way from back then. I'm
Yeah.
sure.
That's great. So let's go to number 2.
Mhm.
Yeah, now it's getting really difficult here.
Yeah, we know that.
It was low on ink. That's interesting. Thank you for that information. I would put "Thanks for the Dance" by Leonard Cohen, which is the album that was released after he died.
He died. Yes.
And it's just an amazing album. It has maybe 4 or 5 of the strongest songs that I've heard in a very long time. And I think what is so interesting is like one of my favorite albums is also his first album that it did, his self-titled album, or it's like songs of Leonard Cohen. And this album I found after having heard the last one when he was still alive, You Want It Darker, which was also a powerful album. And it turns out, you go back and I like the really earliest stuff and the latest stuff, but it's so interesting to see someone who has spent an entire life being frustrated, trying new things, and really like still, even after he dies, like the last album that the producer, his son, and the musicians basically finish off because he made them promise to do that. It is still displaying so much creativity, and the music is still heading somewhere. It is still in motion. It's still looking. There's still passion and curiosity in there at that age, and that is very comforting to know that you don't have to stagnate and just repeat whatever you've done before, like so many of my heroes did.
It's like hearing stories from the dead.
Yeah.
Something,
Yeah.
something, yes, it's something that happened also in David Bowie's last album
Oh yeah.
that was released
yeah.
after his death.
After he died, yeah.
Almost, it was very close to his death. So it's like hearing David talking about death before his death and after his death. It was amazing. The Lazarus song, etc. Yeah.
Very chilling in many ways, but also so, and as I said, comforting. It's sort of like very human in that respect. And I did like I was reading a little bit about the production and everything, and to know that some of the musicians actually cried while recording, because that was, like the one playing in the first song. He said that he didn't expect ever to be playing with him again, and then he got this last opportunity to actually play with him like one last time, and that was very moving. It's a great album. I mean, not only because he died, and not only because the content is what it is, but also just musically, it is a very, very strong and very good album. Like maybe the best one that he did, like one of the best ones for sure.
The best one. Oh,
Anyway,
that's a tough decision. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
the personal taste thing, but to me that is like a real. His 4 best songs are on that, I would say.
Okay, so let's do something very difficult. Number one.
Yeah.
Number one is actually going to be easier than the other ones.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and it's another The Beatles album, which sort of makes it easy to put Abbey Road on 5th. Because Revolver would be on 1st.
Revolver.
Still one of my favorite albums, and it is just, even today, like if you listen to it, if someone who hasn't listened to it previously would listen to it, still today with today's measurements, it is still an album that is daring, and again, like it has everything that's always attracted me to music, which is it has as a driving force. It comes from frustration, curiosity, passion, and honesty. You can just feel that all of those elements are in there. Like they're trying some really new stuff. Like when you have listened to the entire album and then you kick into Tomorrow Never Knows, and you have those loop drums, and this is 1966. God damn it! It is just like it's such an amazing album. The sound is so great, and it's just like it has a ruggedness and a rawness and a restlessness that you won't find on Abbey Road, but it is still not as sort of quirky and out there as the White Album or Sgt. Pepper. It is just, it has that. I mean, it's the most metal album that they ever did.
Of course.
Okay.
Metal later on that was introduced, I think, with Revolver when I was a kid. So that was still, and it's still like, obviously after that, like getting into metal, there was like Holy Diver, all of the Kiss albums, all of that was really, really close to me. But I feel today at 47 that when I pick those albums up, I have to be a little bit, apologetic. Like, like much harder to swallow today. That like I love Lick It Up, for instance, but I can't listen to the sound of it. It's just like the reverbs that they have on the drums. It's just like I'm getting some sort of allergic reaction to it. But if I pick up Revolver, it's still like such a great production, and like it's still like, I don't know, I just have to put that first.
Is it a prog album? Is Revolver a prog album?
I think it is. I mean, it's progressive for sure, in the same sense that I think we are always trying to be progressive in that we're still moving on and still using that curiosity and hopefully courage, because that was what attracted me to metal in the first place. That was a music style that sounded different from anything that had been there previously, and it seemed to be standing up against something, and it was standing up for something. And then somewhere along the line, it just felt like it was stagnating and turning into this recipe music style. And then I found progressive metal, which was still investigating, still being curious, and still trying to find new ways. And then I experienced the same thing, that a lot of the music style just turned into a music style. But I've always been interested in the actual progressive parts of music, whatever music style it is. Like, I feel that the Revolver album was definitely a musical progressive album. It was moving somewhere. It was investigating it's their own relationships to music, which is what I always try to do myself. Like, always try to rekindle that passion for music by investigating what more can I do? What if we do this? What if we do that? Instead of just like, well, that worked for the last album, let's do that again.
Yes, we've seen it clearly nowadays with Panther, of course, but we'll go there. Okay, so
so let's go to the second part of section A of our show. After your top five selection for albums, we would like to hear your top 5 singers.
All right. I have 6. This is difficult.
6. Okay. We'll accept it. We'll accept it.
All right. So on 6th place, Janis Joplin. Great singer. Like, every time I hear material from Janis Joplin, I feel like, who's that great singer with that sort of not as great band? That's always like, if you're Summertime, like some of the notes she's doing on Summertime, it's just like, still today, I'm blown away by the way she's like handling her voice and just keeping that low and steady note, and then she just drops it off that beautifully at the end. And then
her vibrato. Her vibrato.
Yes.
She has an amazing vibrato.
Yeah, and she also, like, very early on, she had those sort of like, again, like ugly things. Like, it's such an ugly beauty in there. Like, she's dropping the notes in sort of like an uncontrolled, but like she's controlling the uncontrolledness of it. That's
a definition. Yeah,
to hear that. But at the same time, like, I think Summertime, while being like vocally one of the best songs I've ever heard, it also has a lot of the worst playing.
That's true. Yeah.
Between what she's doing and what the guitar players are doing. Like, if there was a list of terrible guitaring, that would definitely be on my list. Like, what the hell were they thinking? Just to have a listen. At one point, there are two horrible solos going on at the same time.
That's true. That's true. And you have the courage to tell it.
Yeah, but I don't know. But I'm at the same time, like, I'm maybe they're dead now. I don't know. It would be terrible if they heard this, and they were probably their best, and they were asked to play, most likely. So they did what they could. Anyway, number 5, I'd go for Jeff Buckley, which is obviously a great singer. Would have been interesting to see where he was heading in life and musically and with his voice, if he hadn't been passing away so young. Would have been interesting, but we'll never know, I guess. But a lot of like, he can go a lot of places with his vocals, which I always appreciate, because I just think that the voice can be like one of the most marvelous instruments that you could use. So and he's using it that way.
And I think that you have done a cover of Hallelujah. Am I wrong? Yeah.
No, you're right. We've done that a couple of times, like in different shapes and different. The printer is low on ink.
We don't have any problem. We still seeing you.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
I thought you had it.
No. We are great.
Every see my finger doing this, I'm just that one.
Okay,
All right.
okay. Don't point the finger.
Yeah.
So the fourth position would be Ella Fitzgerald. Some of the stuff she was doing was just like amazing. So such a great voice and such a delivery when like she's really into the singing to such an extent that it's just yeah, I recommend anyone who hasn't seen live clips of Ella Fitzgerald singing, just Google a few
Yeah.
performances. It's divine.
We'll have it down at the comments.
Ah,
Many links
see,
for your choices.
very good. Third position would be Lisa Delbello or Lisa Delbello. I'm not really sure about the pronunciation of that. Also great female singer, and she dares again to be using the voice like all the way. Like she can scream and she can do such like the album Whore was one of my top albums of that entire era. Both production wise and vocal wise, very, very impressive, I think.
Another first for us today,
Yes,
Theodoris,
for us.
because
Yes,
we
yes.
don't know
Oh,
that vocalist. Yeah,
have to check that out. Lisa Delbello. Start with the album Whore. Like if you're into metal and you're into sort of like metal that is trying different stuff, the album Whore is just
okay.
really cool. You'll also
Okay.
find Tommy Lee making some really good drumming on that, actually.
Really? Oh, nice. Nice bridge with the hard rock world.
Yes, yes, yes.
And
Thank you for the info.
Oh
Thank you.
yeah, check it out. The fun thing with her is that like I have 3 albums of hers, and they're all totally different. Like the first is like really like synth experimental, weird. The second one is like a pop album, like power pop that you would usually hear on the radio. And the third one I would classify as weird, almost industrial metal oriented music with lots of like
Oh,
different stuff going on. So very, very all
Yeah.
over the place,
And
but always,
now we can understand all your inspirations
yes.
yeah,
step
coming
by
from
step.
various for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be even more clear now with
Yeah,
the
of course.
second, which is Tony Bennett.
Oh,
Ah,
Tony Bennett.
Tony Bennett.
Tony,
Okay.
and
Nice.
I mean, he's not the kind of singer that does 100 different things. He does one thing, but it does it so good. I mean, his timing is. I'm still finding myself like if I'm trying to find timing for a certain passage or phrase, I'm thinking like, what would Tony have, because his timing is so cool. Because I was gonna say it's spot on, but it's sort of like spot off, but in a perfect way. Like he can just like hold one of the words and then deliver it a little bit later at the perfect spot, so it has a groove that is just like so difficult
Yeah,
to make.
yeah.
Very, very impressive to hear what he was.
Like Frank Sinatra did, and
Yeah,
Tony is the
Tony.
continuation. Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
Tony,
And for
Tony.
me, the way he sings is very emotional.
Yeah,
For me, it's very emotional.
yeah. I totally agree. And
Yeah, yeah.
the interesting thing is that when you look at it, the components are very few. Like it's as I said, he's not going over the top. He's not overly theatrical or dramatic,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but in very, very small movements, he can still convey so much emotion, and that is still impressing me a lot. A little bit like with, I guess, the same feeling I had with Simon and Garfunkel. Like they could make so small and careful songs, and still they could sort of speak about so many things in that
Both of
little
them. Yeah.
context.
And both of them. Not
Yes.
not
Yeah,
The
only one of them, both of
the
them.
vo the
but
vocal
Yeah.
the vocal layers
Yes.
are everything for Simon and Garfunkel.
yeah, but also how they could like tell such a small story, but you understood, even as a kid, I understood this is about something bigger. Like this is not about a boxer.
Yeah, yeah.
About this is about society. This is about immigration. This is about so many other things. This is about not giving up. There were so many things in every small lyric, and the words were so carefully weighed and balanced. That has been an inspiration for me ever since. Like when it comes to lyrics, just trying to find the right words to express something.
A small comment before we go furtherwards. I see that everything that you refer to is about storytelling. Everybody, every album, every singer has a storytelling thing inside him.
That is
So
true.
that's another thing that you have to thought about.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
a good point. I'm going to
Yeah,
bring that with me. Actually,
yeah,
that's a.
yeah.
Uh, I'm not sure how that because we still have number one to go with vocals, and at the first place I have Ronnie James Dio,
Oh,
which
The
storytelling.
ultimate storyteller.
yeah,
The
okay, the
ultimate
ultimate,
storyteller.
yes.
I always feel like it's the opposite of Simon and Garfunkel. Like there's so many things thrown in there, like so many. It's very props heavy, like heavy on the props. They're things everywhere and steel and lots of strong words. So the strength of his storytelling is not the actual story, but the props that he's bringing in. You get a feeling for something like I got wings of steel, but they never really move me. Like all of that is sort of like it doesn't really tell a proper story. It's just like any story filled with different props, and it becomes sort of a fantasy world. Um, so yeah, that is lyrically. I think I loved that as a kid. As I grew older, that's the lyrical themes I've been trying to move away from.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
maybe another word for steel here. That's
Yeah. Yeah.
how I would.
Okay.
And you have found so many words inside your albums with so
Yes.
many lyrics.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yes, you managed to do it
Well,
for sure.
yeah.
Yeah, you have to have a very great knowledge of the English language, of course, as we
Well,
can see in your lyrics.
yeah. We grew up with English so much.
Yeah, we know that.
My kids, they just impress me a lot. Like today, it's even more because you have not only the like when I grew up, we had movies, of course. There was a lot of television that was, you had to either be very quick at reading or you had to understand English because it was not dubbed. And so naturally, you were trained in both reading and English. But like today, even at the age of 8, when my middle son was 8, I would hear him in his room when they were playing computer games because they had chats going on at the same
Yeah,
time
yeah.
in English. Like, and he's 8 years old, and he's like talking away like fluently, and I heard it outside, and I'm like, Jesus Christ!
Let's do some lyrics together.
Yes, yes.
So
Oh
the
You
next
can,
album,
you,
sorry
you
for
can,
this,
yeah, yeah.
the next album could
yeah,
be about video games.
I don't know.
Yeah, with
Okay.
the cooperation of your son.
Yeah, this is what I was about to tell you. You can ask your children to write some lyrics for you
Of
Yeah,
for
course.
for your next album.
they would be game based, I'm sure.
Okay, okay.
They want
So
to talk.
what?
So
That would be so interesting
yeah, for us,
for
for
us.
sure.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, in that
But
case,
yeah,
like
yeah.
show them like Nintendo 8-bit and stuff, and go like, "This is real.
Oh.
You know, this sort of gaming."
I see.
Okay.
So, Thodori and Daniel, let's go to section 2.
Section
All
two.
right.
Yes.
So, let's start, of course, with the obvious. Let's do some Panther now.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
the most obvious question that we have to do it, of course, is why Panther?
Well, I can tell you that the option would have been cars.
Hmm.
I was working on analogies, and I have been for a long time because, like a lot of my life, I've been, trying to understand what I am in comparison to the rest of mankind, trying to sort of like find a way of calculating the offset for the interface to the rest of mankind. Basically, not really feeling like a normal person, which I think a lot of people can relate to. Like you come to school and you constantly feel like it's like there's code that I'm not really, we're not really matching somehow. I didn't have any problems finding friends or anything like that, but I still always felt like I was interested in stuff that very few other people seem to be interested in. And I had a huge problem sitting still during class or being focused when I found that it was not challenging enough. And I've always had a bit of an issue trying to work like socially with people. Like I'm really I can be really shy, and not really knowing how to get into a social situation. And then once that shyness passes, I'll find myself just talking way too much instead, and then I will be drained afterwards and just like repeat everything that's been said in my head, stuff like that, which led me to an adult ADHD diagnosis very life. And I guess this album is about that, but it is also about the weird thing that has happened over especially the last decades, where we have, because I think we flatter ourselves as a culture. I think we can start talking about a global culture at this point, and the global culture is flattering itself in many ways, in that we live in an era where we see that everyone's different and we can tolerate everyone's differences, and but actually, like in real life, that is not the same as making it the norm. I would say that the definition of what is normal has been narrowing down rather than widening over since I was a kid. Like looking back now, I can see that a lot of us should probably, like with today's standards, we would have been diagnosed and medicated. And if you look at the history, all of those history books and all of those wonderful, brilliant people that were teaching the kids about, they would all have been diagnosed and medicated if they would be
Indeed.
today. There wouldn't have been room for them to develop into the brilliant people that they developed into. So I think we live in a very weird time, because we're like, half of it is about being so tolerant, and everyone has the right to their own type of education because they have different premises and different personalities that are diagnoses. But at the same time, that means we're also telling them very early on, you're not normal. We love you, but you're not normal. Never had to hear that as a kid. Like I never had to question whether I was dysfunctional. It was just a matter of what kind of personality you had. I was a restless, sort of like shy but also loud kind of boy, and that was it, and that was it. It had fun, of course. So I started talking to kids as a teacher, and I started using an analogy of cars. Like, all right, so this is it. Like, if all human beings were cars, you'd have all of these different kinds of cars, like from the small Nissan Micras, and up, you have your trucks, you have your buses, and all the way up to the Formula One cars. And all of them will be good and wonderful cars when used in the right context. Like if you put the Nissan racetrack, it will underperform horribly, and it will be very dysfunctional. But on the other hand, if you put a Formula One car in a small suburban street with lots of road crossings and red lights, and you have to use your blinkers and drive safely, the Formula One car will suddenly dysfunction horribly because it's not driven like that. And the same thing goes for human beings. Like we are, like all of our functions and all of our skills can also be dysfunctions if you're in the wrong. So if you're talking about neurotypical people, like the normal people, if there are any, the last ones I would want to hold hands with when the shit hits the fan. Like in a disaster or a catastrophe or a plane crash or a zombie apocalypse, that really normal people, they will dysfunction like nothing. Like they seriously, they scare easily, they tire easily. Like one thing that is good with the ADHD side of the spectrum is you have endless energy, basically. So also like is sort of vague for the normals, and the moral compass can also be sort of vague, which is why they are the perfect ones if you want to deforest an entire area. You just you put lots of normal people on it, they're going to do the work. Like if I don't do it, no.
Daniel, do you believe that, not believe, do you think that Panther is an evolution for the career for the career, sorry, of Pen of Salvation?
Well, I, I guess we never really think that way. Like when we're coming from one album, we're sort of like diving, or at least me as a composer, I'm sort of like diving straight into the next one. I mean, the writing process is a continuous process that just carries on every day in a slow, organic sort of development. So it's never like I'm not quitting, like doing one album and then I have a break and then I start writing an album. I just write music all the time, and then they turn into albums. And the parable ones that, like when you have kids, you see them every day and they grew up slowly and you don't really think about it that much. They just grow in an organic, slow process together with you. And then all of a sudden you meet the relatives that you haven't seen for 4 years. Oh my God, your kid grown up so much. It's the same thing for us. Like these songs and these albums, they're our kids. We'll live with them like every day. So I think, at least for myself, being the composer, I'm always a bit surprised when the fans are going like, "Oh my God, it's so different from the previous albums."
We see.
Oh yeah, because to me it was just like a slow, constant process. I didn't really think about it that much. I feel that I'm in the same phase as during the Passing Light of Day, but obviously lots of years have passed since I started writing music for the Passing Light of Day, and until now, when I like even the Panther albums, it's almost, what is it, like the last things I did for the Panther songs creatively was probably like almost a year ago.
Oh,
So obviously,
yeah.
all point I've been developing or growing or regressing or progressing or whatever it is.
Yeah.
For almost one more year since then, and I haven't really thought about it that much. But probably if I put out music right now, they'd go like, "Oh, it's so different from Panther."
Yeah. So I want to ask you something on that. You surely know and you understand that Panther needs time for the audience to grow inside.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you think that when you write or produce a song, you do it on purpose? You do something that needs depth and time? You think about that? You
I
try to do that?
I just think about it, but I'm not doing it intentionally. Like in the perfect of worlds, I would love for the music to be able to gain the depth and the insight over the, like having all of that depth that you can get from spending a lot of time with an album. I would love if that was possible to just like give that straight off, like but I've noticed that it is like, even for myself as a music listener, same thing. um Maybe a shorter time span for me. Like when I hear something, I've noticed that I can really love it and I can understand that I'm gonna love this even more in a year from now. I can see the potential of it quicker than most other people who are not into music, because I guess you're trained in a different way.
Hmm.
The same way, I guess, if you're making movies all the time, it's going to be easier for you to determine if you watch a movie,
Yeah.
great movie.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
You need less time to understand that, I think. But I just simply, I mean, I live with my music for a long time. And so obviously, I think you add those layers and you make those adjustments as you go, because your own passion for it and your own interest in the music that you're writing. It turns into music that takes a while to digest. And we've always been aware of that. And we've seen it not. I think it is a strength for our music from a fan's point of view, because they can live with our music for such a much longer time, and once they get the music under their skin, it just lasts, and it hits harder, and it sort of like goes deeper in the structure of them. But it also is a risk that they will never understand what the music could provide for them because they don't spend the time with it. And also, like, when it comes to releasing albums, obviously a strong factor is the reviews. We have experienced a few times in the history of innovation that reviewers have actually made a second review of the album.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Sort of like, oh, you know what? I got it wrong. It recommends, which is a wonderful thing, but the review that people read obviously is that first one. And those reviews are very often based on just a few listens to the album. So that is a marketing weakness of it.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
That's the
Daniel, one of the songs of your new album Panther is titled Icon.
Yeah.
Do you think that young fans nowadays do they have any rock legends or any icons as we had when we were young?
Maybe not to the same depth. Basically, practically because there's so much, there's so many more of them. Like, there's so much information. There's so many heroes are coming and going so quickly. Back when we grew up, you had like a handful of heroes. Like, you had to wait for a year. Sometimes, like, I know, like, people expect us to update much more often on Facebook and Instagrams and whatever you have. But like, you remember when we were kids and you had to wait like for the next year for that
Yeah, for an album.
music.
Or
And, my God,
yeah.
And then you would read that like 58 times, just waiting for the next album when there would be enough.
Yes.
And that was it.
And as one of us, as we didn't have all some money in order to buy some records, one of our friends always bought the record, and we went to his home in order to hear it.
Yeah. There was a much more of a social community.
Of course. Yeah. No social distancing back then.
Like, can I record that onto a cassette?
Yes.
Like, you were lucky you could borrow the albums, and then you would make a cassette. And then, like, even with kids, like, I had all the albums for the kids, but I also had them on cassette.
Yes.
From recordings,
Yeah. Okay.
So, Daniel, have you ever imagined one of your albums as a theatrical play, and with which actors?
We ask you that because you have already made concept albums. So
I know that when we were recording 1 Hour by the Concrete Lake, we were like, especially me and Frederick, we were talking a lot about, there should be a movie with it. And then we started talking about the actors. I think we concluded in the end that we wanted, what's his name? Quaid. Dennis
Quaid.
Going to be the main character of 1 Hour by the Concrete Lake. Of course, he doesn't know that, and he would never have done that. But that was so. Yeah, I mean, the music is always, and the lyrics. It's conceptual, and it's sort of it's visual. I mean, I hope that when people hear it, they will visualize,
of course,
what is happening, and I think a lot of the albums and a lot of the songs, it's music that would go well together with visual themes like movies or games or I was going to say books, so that's not a
audio books.
Audio. Yes. Yeah. You'd play the album and listen to the audiobook.
Of course.
So, Daniel, as your career lasts for so many years, that's true.
It is true.
We need to know what is progressive to you? How you define progressive nowadays?
I think I'm still into that. As I said, that it attracted me as a kid with music when the music came from a place of frustration,
Mm-hmm.
city, passion, and honesty. I think those are the cornerstones for me when it comes to music. And if you combine those elements, it turns into progression, because that curiosity and that frustration will lead to finding new ways, and
Mm-hmm.
it will make it become something that is, and the honesty will make it become something that is close to. And I think that is the strength of music. When people write the music that they really like themselves, they care about the music, because the music will be an extension of themselves in many ways, which means they will do their best to nurture this child, if you will, and make it as well as they can. Give those songs and that music the best premises and possibilities that is possible.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, as we're going near to the end of our broadcast,
Near to the end.
near to the end,
We have
almost.
some more questions for you.
Yeah.
So, how do you manage to find balance between commerciality and your own creation needs? It's something very difficult for a prog character like you are.
I think the answer to that is probably that I constantly fail it.
No, you don't agree.
And that, I mean, that's again, like, just with diagnosis, a weakness, depending on how you look at it. Uh, we will always, maybe I should speak for myself in this, but I have always went, I yeah.
That's the trailer. That's the trailer of the broadcast.
Or, anyway, I've always gone for whatever the creative side of it is. So that would always be my option. And many times we have been aware that this would be the good option marketing wise, but we're going to go with this one anyway.
You always choose the creation.
We will always do that. And I think we decided that fairly early on. Everyone was on board with that this is always going to be like, at the end of the day, you can make something that you truly believe in, or something that you think is going to be a good move, like from objective. But if you at any point sacrifice what you want to do creatively, then there's still the option that it's still not going to be, hitting it off marketing.
Mhm.
That's sort of like, if you start with, this is what I like, this is what I want to do, this is what I believe in, at least you have that one part of it right.
Yeah.
And then hopefully the other parts, if you're lucky, will sort of fall into place. So that's the way of where that at least one part of it is made.
Great.
Daniel, have you ever think of composing a solo album, but of a totally different type of
Genre.
music? For
Yeah.
example, an album full of electronica, nothing else.
Oh, I would love that. And I would love to make like a really dark and depressive country album. That would be so cool.
Okay.
But like I'm still planning that when I grow up, I'm gonna make some albums, and I'm gonna write books, and I also gonna paint more, because I used to paint. I never do that.
Oh,
Okay.
nice.
Grow up and I find the time for it. It's difficult. Pain and Salvation is just taking so much of my time. My
Okay. For sure, for sure.
and I have so many plans.
Good for you and good for us.
Well,
Yeah. And
don't-
it would be,
plans are going to be reality.
I think it would be very interesting to hear a country album from you. Country. No,
Dark,
I'm
dark
telling you that.
country.
I'm telling you that because your look also is like a countryman, like a USA country. If you wear a hat, you will be like a
Yeah.
John
Yeah.
Wayne. John Wayne.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do some final questions now.
Yes.
All right.
In general. So, another difficult one.
All right. Thanks.
Which will be an ideal billing with Pain of Salvation, no as headliners, but as an opening act.
So what do we want to play before?
No. You will be the opening act, and then there will be some bands after you, and you can choose from every decade you want.
Oh, that okay.
Yeah.
This is
Supposing that all groups are alive and alive and kicking.
so what is my angle in this? Do I want to sort of like impress the audience, or do I want to have a chance of meeting the other guys?
Just take your chances.
Yes.
I'll go for the big ones then. You know, I think it would be nice meeting the Beatles.
As headliners.
Yeah, they would be headliners. Yeah,
Okay.
obviously, you know. Maybe like today, if we want to reach like a new audience, it would be cool to have on the bill would also be 21 Pilots and Yellow Wolf. Maybe
Wow.
that could be a cool thing. What else? Well, Leonard Cohen, obviously. You know, I
Yeah.
have to. You know,
Of course.
so yeah,
Okay.
it would be a lot of the same guys that I put on like my favorite albums and artists list, basically because I would love to be able to play with them, of course.
Yeah.
You know,
That's true.
that'd be a festival, I think.
Okay. So, Todori, let's
Yeah.
do some final question.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you have anything?
I have
Yes. I have one question, Dimitris.
Okay. I was sure.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Daniel, do you believe that there might be a new band, of course, that you know, that they can be the next Pain of Salvation, then a unique band like you are? Is there any band that you like nowadays that you believe they have potentials to be bigger?
Well, I have no idea. Like probably, but nothing that I know of. But I felt, for instance, like listening to 21 Pilots, that the Blurry Face album, they are doing something that I feel is progressive in a way today, even though it would never be placed in the progressive or the metal music styles. They're frustrated, they're passionate, they're curious, and they're trying new things and they're taking risks. And even on the album Blurface, they sort of like the lyricist is beating himself up for not always taking risks. Like writing a lyric about sort of not expecting himself for the, you know, whenever you make a compromise in order to get sort of a hit, so that about him not liking that compromise. I think it's brilliant. Obviously, they don't really need to be that much bigger though, because they're huge already. And obviously they're not going to be the next Pain of Salvation because
Okay.
their aim. But they do have those progressive elements that I really like. I'm hoping for that in the actual progressive scene as well. Just courage up a little bit.
Yeah, you're right. So,
Okay.
Daniel, congratulations for your release, Panther.
Thanks.
It was a great honor to have you here with us tonight.
It was nice meeting you guys.
Indeed.
It was
Thank you
great.
so much.
We hope that we'll see you soon performing in Greece again.
Oh yeah, we'll be back. We love it.
It was an amazing live show before 2 years, I think, or so, something like that.
Probably, yeah.
In Athens.
Yeah,
it was with in the Passing of Light and Day tour. Amazing live action of the original album. It was one of my best Pain of Salvation shows ever, and I have seen you many times.
really enjoyed doing that album on stage.
It was obvious.
This is going to be real interesting too. Like Panther is going to be even more complicated.
Yeah. I'm very curious.
Yes,
on
yes.
what do you have as a non-playback version of the album? Because it has too many elements
Yeah,
for a live performance.
Our beloved keyboard player D2, we have to do a lot of stuff.
Of course, I see that.
So we'll see how we sort of complete that. It's going to be interesting for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Oh, it's like with the pandemic and everything, I guess there is a chance that when we go on tour, we might be touring 2 albums. Because I'm writing the next album right now. So
Wow.
how long the break is going to be.
We hope that we'll see you sooner from that.
Yeah.
Okay. So Daniel, thank you very much, man.
Thank you
so much. Thank you.
Yeah. Be good, you and your family, with all this stuff
safe,
that is going on.
We're living in the middle of nowhere, so we're
we see that.
We have social distance like in our DNA.
Yeah, of course. You are a true Sweden guy.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you very much, Daniel. See you soon in Greece. Greetings to your family. Greetings to your family.
Yes, I must be the problem here. I know what you're thinking. I must be the problem here.
So Dimitris, that was Daniel from Pain of Salvation.
Daniel Gildenlöw of Pain of Salvation.
Correct.
One of the most intriguing prog bands nowadays and the past 25 or so years.
Yes.
It was an amazing chat of his inspirations and of course of the new release of the band, Panther.
Which is the new release. I don't know if you will agree with me, but the new release, it's a bit bizarre for the Pain of Salvation fans.
It's very bizarre.
I think that it is the most obscure release so far from this band, because we were used to have how can I say it, same format of making songs.
I don't agree with that. I don't agree because Pain of Salvation, each album has a lot of different elements from the past one. But this one, I totally agree with you. Panther is an album that needs time, as we've said with Daniel before. That needs time. But as we've heard Daniel saying, it's not totally on purpose. He just writes song, and he just writes song that he feels when he writes them.
Yes.
In the Passing Light of Day was written 3 or 4 years before, and Panther is written in 2019. So we have something totally different, but not in the mind of the creator.
Yes, and I'm very curious to hear if he will ever composing the country album.
The country album, the dark country album.
It will be very interesting. Interesting, sorry. It will be very interesting.
We have a great news for all the fans of Daniel Gildenlöw.
Yes.
One of his next releases will be a dark.
Might be.
We'll say that it will be a dark country album. So that was In the Air Tonight with Daniel Gildenlöw tonight.
Dimitris and
Thodoris. Please subscribe here and follow us on social media, Facebook, etc. Thank you very much for tonight.
See you next week.
Bye, Thodoris.
Bye.